everyone, and welcome to the third day of Hyper Games Conference. And during this panel, we will go deep with some experts into the relationship between studios and publishers, and notably how to choose the right publisher. And today we have actually people on both studios sides and publisher side. So on studio side, we have Carol Jamala from Orbital Night. Hi, Carol.
Hello. Hello.
And we have Anton Herbatov from 24 Play.
Yo.
And on the publisher side, we have Sergey Martinkevich from Azur Games, and me, Alexander.
What's up, guys?
From Homa Games. Hello, everyone. And I would like to
see you there.
Yeah. Nice to see you all, guys. Today I would like to start maybe with more information on the studios that are on this panel. So Carol and Anton, would you please tell us a bit about your studio? Where is it based? For how long do they exist? With whom, with which publishers you work, etc.
Who starts?
I can start. So Orbital Night is, we are in the business for 9 years. Already we started in 2012, actually with a premium game. It was a big game that did well. It broke even, and which was like what we hoped for our first title. But the biggest point was that it allowed us to establish relationship with Apple and Google. And for a long time, we relied on on App Store featuring and Google Play Store featuring, and we didn't build our user acquisition muscle in the studio. So long story short, fast forward to like 2018. It kind of like kicked us in the butt, I would say, because this reliance on App Store features deteriorated greatly over the years, and we decided that we need to start working with a publisher because it's basically too late to figure out UA on our own. And we tried a couple attempts, and in the end, we settled for Voodoo, and we decided to go back into the hyper-casual business because the biggest game that we did to this time, Kikarina, was basically a hyper-casual game before even called those games hyper-casuals. So we thought, okay, maybe we should go back to the roots, and actually it was a good move. We released with them with Voodoo 3 hit games since 2019, and we're still working, still prototyping stuff and hoping to release even more games. So that's that's the short version.
Thank you very much, Anton.
Yeah, so we're a hyper-casual studio, I guess, in the business for more than a year, doing hyper-casual, growing our team and expertise each month. So currently we have like around 40 employees, and we work with pretty much every publisher on the market. We either work with them right now or worked with them before. So yeah, we have a pretty large scope of understanding which publisher is better and worse, and it's not more of a better or worse, but everyone has his own feats and etc. So yeah, that's a short overview.
So right now, let's say both studios have quite a different approach. Orbital Night works mostly with one publisher. 24 Play works with multiple publishers. Could you guys shortly tell us what are the pros and cons of working with one publisher or multiple publishers?
I can tell you why we decided to work with a single publisher. I mean, we did try working with a couple others, and basically, like in our case, it's a matter of workflow. It's not that you just. I mean, we have like a really good and close relationship with Voodoo, and I do know that not everybody has such a good relationship with them. We are in direct contact with a lot of guys at Voodoo, and we share a lot of information, data. So it's more about a process. It's not about publishing one game and scaling it. It's about the it's more about what you don't see, what's not on the store. It's all about those prototypes that died, or all about those prototypes that failed. I mean, for those three hit games that we did, I mean, we tested, I don't know, like 70, 80 other prototypes. So it's like we have like a process that we post an idea on our internal board, then we vote on it, then we discuss those ideas with guys at Voodoo. They give us feedback that tell us, look, we tested something similar, so maybe that's not a good idea, it didn't work, maybe you should scrap that idea, even on the ideation phase. So we are able to quickly discard those ideas very early on, so we can focus on what has high potential. Sometimes they will tell us, look, this looks something similar, but I mean, this game had like good CPI, but poor retention. Maybe you can figure how to improve retention on this one. So it's a constant dialogue, and it would be really hard, to work with two publishers in a similar way, because I mean, when we have like an idea, well, I mean, with who we are talking about this particular idea, you know what I mean. It would be really hard, to draw a line, which ideas go where, and I mean, we didn't figure it out how to. And overall, we thought it would be a communication overhead. So we thought maybe it's better to focus on one publisher. At some time, on some point, we had this idea. Maybe we'll test, the fake prototypes with other publishers, but quickly we learned that if a prototype fails with one publisher, it's probably going to fail with another, because it's not that publishers have like a magic formula to to push KPIs from games that don't have them. If a game doesn't have KPIs, you won't have KPIs even if you switch publishers. So we discarded that workflow and decided that it's working with a single publisher works best for us.
Maybe we can ask Anton then. How do you manage to work with multiple publishers and still keep it all on track?
Well, basically, you see, Colonel mentions that they have a great workflow with Voodoo. In our case, we've built a workflow for our studio, and based on it, we managed to add different publishers to this flow. So we develop a game, and it doesn't much matter if it was tested by Voodoo or by Homa or by Joypack. It doesn't matter at all, because we have these processes already done on our side. So I guess that's it. Also, once you work with more than one publisher, you're able to gather much more expertise, because there are a lot of publishers in the market. They've done a lot of hits. They have different approaches to how they can decrease CPI or increase retention. And from all of that, we can assemble a lot of useful data that we use daily. I mean, internally, of course.
Yeah, thank you. And Sergey, as a representative of publisher, which kind of studios you prefer? The ones that work with you, let's say, exclusively, or that have like many publishers working with them, or it doesn't matter for you?
Actually, it depends on the studio, because I see that some studios bring all the best from such kind of partnerships. I mean, they grow their own expertise, product expertise, and they can share some pipelines, how we work, or they can implement some pipelines, how we work. And anyway, it's about natural rotation. It's okay. I don't like exclusivity, maybe because sooner or later, if your pipeline with this studio right now is not perfect, exclusivity will bring you down anyway. And if all the processes are not good, but if the processes are good, so why not? It's okay both to work exclusively and to work when studio works with several publishers. It depends actually on your aims and whether you are on the same page with your publisher. So if it's okay, then you can try to work with as much as you can. But anyway, you will face the situation when you have to iterate maybe several games simultaneously. And I noticed several times when such studios have terrible troubles in processes when they have to, one thing is when you make a lot of prototypes for several publishers, and another thing is when you have to focus, to concentrate, and to make iterations, to make a lot of A/B tests. And yeah, in that case, you will anyway have to be more flexible and maybe to sacrifice working with someone to finish the game. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. And maybe the question to all of you, what should right now in 2021 the publisher provide to the developers? How should they assist the developers? Should they do it at all, or just focus on user acquisition? What's your experience of this, Carol?
Okay. I also have a tiny bit of insight into the publishing side, because once we tried, I mean, it was like you could say a prototype process. We tried to coaching other studios, and I could see, gain a bit of perspective, how other studios work, and that's when I learned I didn't recognize it at our studio until I saw, what other studios are lacking. And I think the most valuable thing that you could learn from a publisher is a good process, because you need to be, when you're working on hyper casual games, I think you need to be, really systematic. You need to be, goal oriented on data. And when I was talking with the other, especially smaller studios, I quite often saw this attitude, that I have this, one great idea and it's going to be a hit game, and it's really a bad approach, because you're setting yourself up for a failure, and a really painful one, because it rarely happens that, you test one idea and boom, it becomes a hit. You need to test 20, 30, iterate, learn from your mistakes, and then you might be able to, publish a hit game. So, and that requires a lot of persistence. You need to be very organized. You need to be focused on not to spend too much time on the ideas that are going to fail. So you need to be very careful about what you invest your time in. And this is I think this is a quite complex matter, and I think that's the one of the best things that publishers, because publishers have it figured out, and maybe not everybody knows it, but if publishers have it figured out and they can coaching those less experienced studio, I think that's what can bring them up to success. That's the best thing that they can learn from a publisher. So that would be my insight. Maybe not an obvious one, but I think it's quite important.
And Anton, what do you expect from publishers? Same as Carol, or maybe something else?
Well, pretty much, first of all, what I need here from a publisher is his marketing expertise, basically UA, how to accelerate the game, how to scale it up. And this is the main reason why we need publishers in general. But in particular, we would also love to see some marketing insights, because publishers test all the games too. So once they have anything, they see any trend, they share it with you and you brainstorm on it. So it's pretty valuable too. Basically, that's how I pursue that.
And on the opposite side, Sergey, when you're looking to work with studios, what do you look at first? How do you assess the studios?
Actually, I want to joke that we look first of all at screenshots while we're browsing some Stormlight instruments or something like else. But no, anyway, I try to play everything and I install the game. I see level design approach, progression approach. That's important. Not only discipline. I agree with Carol. Yeah, some pipelines and discipline, and how to treat, how to build this A/B test roadmap. Yeah, but since we do games here, sometimes studios don't know fundamental rules of game development. I always see troubles with progression. Levels are becoming longer, are becoming more difficult, but progression doesn't mean longer and more difficult levels. Level design, balance, first flow. I look at first flow of mechanics. How do you know how you dive your audience to the game? And one more thing I practice, I like actually Google Play because I can check optimization. I play only on weak devices and I see what's going on with optimization. It's very important. And but actually, it is very complicated question. Yeah, you have to anyway. You have to talk a lot. You have to understand the studio's approach to ideation process, to iteration process, and anyway, it's all about difficult work from both sides. But yeah, if you speak about how to choose a studio I want to work in, I have described. I just play. I see whether it is something I share, whether it is something I agree, or maybe even such intricate moment when I see, damn, uh, you should just fix it and try to test. And we can even don't work on full time, but at least we can make one A/B test just to be sure that these obvious mistake can boost churn rate and play time and retention. But it's very complicated question. You have to look at many points to bring good titles, and actually the same like the studio. They have to look at many moments to decide whether this publisher perfect suits them or not.
And as a publisher, do you have some tips for studios how to approach publishers, what to prepare, how to show in the best light their studios?
Actually, I always like when studio provide me with information about team members, maybe even about their burn-in rate, because anyway, if you start working together in very close partnerships, it's much more convenient to start working maybe exclusively or covering more financial risks, and you have to be transparent. I like when I see how much developers in this studio, how much artists, and what potential they have in scaling their studio, and whether they want it. It is also important. I want to have as much information as I can about their previous experience. And one more thing I always ask is about negative and positive moments while they were working with other publishers. What do they expect from me? What do they expect from ideal publisher? And how can we reach this ideal process? And and of course you can, if it is advised to studio, you can prepare some videos or maybe APK of the games you made. I also want to see some progression, that from prototype to prototype they grow, they make it better, more deeper. The mechanics are becoming, more responsive, more pleasant, more well understandable. So I want to see growth, and I want, as well as studio wants to have transparent processes, I also want to have transparent processes shared with me from their side.
And
Mainly, that's all.
yeah,
And of course, yeah, of course, it's always very important to understand what was the best metrics studio managed to reach. For me, it is even much more important to hear the best retention rate, because it shows whether studio feels this deepness, whether the studio feel how to build deep core gameplay and how to make users play longer.
yeah. Thank you, Sergey. We know that Anton is working with a lot of publishers. The question, like, I guess you're not working with all of them. You're still selective. What are you looking in publishers to start working with them? Some advantages, some key points.
Well, first of all, I just want this publisher to land the hit in the recent time. just to be sure that they can deliver UA that we need most here. Secondly, once we start working with them, we want to make sure that they have some expertise because we work here as partners, as a team, and to deliver great games, we have to be in close touch, and we rely here on our expertise and on our publishers' expertise because it's important to have the same vision of the product, basically. So I guess that's it. Once you don't see some, once you don't see some expertise, you better run from the publisher because yeah, once you feel like it's you won't launch a hit with them, just skip it and move forward to somebody who can actually make a hit with you. So that's all. That's all about hits.
And have you ever had a case where, let's say, the well-known publisher who delivers the hits did not meet your expectations? What was that about?
Well, that depends very much not only on publisher but also on basically marketability trends. For example, we had cases when CPI was low for some time, and we had steady retention, and LTV was higher than CPI, but in a month or so, basically CPI rises, and you don't get this to be a hit. So cases like this happen, but yeah, we haven't you know got in the situation where a publisher just uh, rejected or a hate or something like that. At least for me, maybe previously something like that happened.
And Sergey, did you have some kind of similar experience with the studios when on the paper they are amazing and making a lot of prototypes per month of good quality, but then in the end something went wrong?
Yeah, it happens, and it's about this natural rotation I was speaking before, because every publisher sooner or later meets the situation when you work with a studio, you grow, but anyway, you can't publish anything, and maybe you have several products in iterations, but still no commercial launches, and the studio wants to try to work with someone else, and finally, in several months, you see a big title by this studio published, and it is the best. It is very bad case. Yeah, it sometimes happens. It's not the fault of a publisher or a studio. It's all about it's all about what you're working on. You have to both agree whether it makes sense to continue iterating the game or not. As I told before, you have to be on the one page. And we have vice versa. We have some successful situation while working with the studio. I mean, when studio brings a hit game to us, for example, the last game, Swordplay, it was tested by a very huge publisher, and they started iteration process, but this iteration process just killed the metrics. And a studio just decided to try to work with someone else. We understood all this pipeline, what they tested. We asked to roll back, and we tested just the first version. And finally, we see that the results are amazing. And in 3 weeks, we published the game. And vice versa. I know that there are a lot of studios who stopped working with us, made good games with someone else. It's not, it's about natural rotation. And for example, there were one funny story when we were iterating one good product with the studio, and developer from this studio, not founder, but developer, one of developer, he moved to another studio with this idea, and they they started working on this idea. But finally, neither we nor second studio published the game. But anyway, you see, such situations also occurs, and we can't just do anything with that. It is market. This market is very mature. A lot of people there, and yeah, we have to deal with very, very different situations, both pleasant and both negative.
Okay, so we can say that there is no ideal publisher, but what does it really depend on? That one studio is super happy with the publisher, another studio is not that happy with the publisher, moves to another publisher. Let's start with Carol. Like Carol, what do you think about it?
I mean, when we were like deciding who to start work with, I mean, we didn't know. I mean, how it's gonna end up, working with this particular publisher. So at the beginning, we started with the contract basically. So, I mean, I know that things might have changed, but back in 2019, like we rejected a couple of publishers purely because they had like unacceptable clauses in their contract, and we were basically left with Voodoo because they had the most developer friendly contract at that time. That might not be the case nowadays, because I from what I know, things have improved, but it's also something to note, and something to be careful about. And we started working with them with it was basically a test, and we quickly noticed that we enjoyed this process. We had a lot of experience back from when we were self-publishing our games, so we didn't start completely from scratch. So, and we quickly turned out into a process that we basically are we know what we want to do, and we don't need a lot of coaching about how to build the game, about level design, gameplay. I think we are quite capable at that. We just need somebody that's very proficient at marketing and has like a marketing insight in what's going on, what's currently tested, what are the trends. And so we try to use we focus on making great games, and we use the publishers' knowledge about market. So they focus on what they are good at, and we focus on what we are good at, and I think this mix works really good for us.
Tom, what do you think about it?
Well, I can agree that this is a nice approach when a publisher basically covers CPI stuff and you as a developer cover retention stuff, and somewhere in between you can launch a hit. But it's not that easy in fact. So especially for the publisher to provide a low CPI concept, for example, etc. So we as game developers try to do best games that we can and get as high attention as we can once again. But it all goes down to CPI too, and it's pretty hard for everyone to find it. So here, I guess I split this responsibility for finding a good marketability concept between publisher and the developer.
And Sergey, let's say that the studio is like super good and super capable. A publisher is well known and super capable, but things sometimes still don't work among them. Do you think it's more like a human factor, or maybe even culture fit? What do you think?
I think, yeah, sometimes such situations happen, and that's okay. It's about discipline. It's about making more and more. And if you feel that there is no human factor and it's all about statistics, you see that all your games have really good retention rate. And it's all about looking for idea with good scalability and marketability. And then just continue. No need to dismoral yourself and your partner. Just try to move forward. We see that at least one good commercial launch you have to do if you work for a year in very close relations with the publisher. At least one average commercial launch. It is something. It's not a huge mountain to climb, guys. If you make 2 or 3 prototypes per month, statistics say us that it's okay. But if not, yep, maybe you have to try something fresh, something new, some new approaches, because it's all about it's all about the chance at the same time. And you can be a very good game developer if you can understand all the fundamental stuff, how to make your churn rates better, and how to force your users to watch interstitials, and it's not going to be even a distraction point in your game. I mean, sometimes when you put interstitials and retention remains the same, but it's all about the idea. It's all about marketability of the concept. Maybe the concept is not well understandable. It has narrow audience, or it has some violence. A lot of reasons actually. And but Alexander, if you told me that if a studio very good and a publisher very good and they both understand what they do, I don't think this situation can appear after 1 year of very close work together. Anyway, you have to continue, because it is the only way. It is why we are here, to continue to make games and never stop, and do your best to grow, to help grow your partner. No matter, to help grow, like a studio, you can help grow publisher when you provide with some ideas, because it's difficult to compete with the whole world if you speak about ideas. Such a question: should publisher provide his ideas or vice versa? I think that it's something, it's something from both sides, because if you speak about ideas from a publisher, it means that there are about 10 or maybe even 20 game designers and producers who retranslate their experience, their gaming experience. Anyway, it's only about 10 or 20 people. And you just can't compete with the whole world if we speak about ideation process. That's why we try to develop product expertise and partners, and that's what most publishers do, because if we speak about risks, it's much more better to help grow in product way to studios, so that they provide with really deep and good concepts, to cut bad concepts. As told Anton, publishers have a lot of tests, and at least we can cut some ideas we have already tested and show maybe some not tested yet with good potential. And what do you think, Alexandra, by the way? Because always it's all about us. But anyway, you're also a publisher, and it's very interesting to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, from my experience, I would say it depends as well on a publishing manager. Maybe Carol, Anton, even you, Sergey, had this experience when changing the publishing manager, kind of changing maybe the focus on other genres, etc., and sharing the thoughts not only of one publishing manager, but of a different publishing manager. It could really affect the results and bring like some fresh air to the ideation process, to the work with the studio, to objectively assess the studio, or vice versa.
That's, by the way, that's very good tip for everyone. If you like what publisher does, but you don't like what you do with the producer, it doesn't mean that the whole publisher bad. Try to talk to a publishing manager and to change producer, or if a publishing manager only works with you in product way, try to change publishing manager, because there are a lot of mini teams in every publisher, and if you are not pleased with the current one, but you are pleased with what publisher does itself, just try to talk. Don't be shy. It is the only problem. It is the only problem in this business, and Alexander will agree with me that a lot of developers who are very shy, they don't want to share their problems. They don't want to ask, they don't want to ask more money to scale their studio, because they treat this issue like something terrible, like some evil investments, which will bring all their future revenue share. But anyway, no, just try to be frank, try to be transparent, and talk to your publishing manager, to the highest management, share your troubles, share your expectations, and that way we will both grow and make a lot of games. Both, I mean, publisher and studio.
Yeah, I completely agree. And for the developers who are listening to us, etc., you should understand that every publishing manager in the publishing company, he has his kind of still own perspective on the things within the system, but still his own perspective. He plays the game that maybe other publishing managers don't play, or vice versa. So that's why sometimes you can move from publisher to publisher, but sometimes it's sufficient to go from publishing manager to publishing manager to get another expertise, another view on the things.
Yeah, good point.
I guess Anton had some experience like this, working with multiple publishers.
Yeah, in fact, a couple of times we've switched our publishing managers or producers from the publisher side, and it indeed helped us to grow. So once again, dear developers, don't be shy and tell about your problems to your publishers.
But I guess with a 24 plays case, as you're working with all the publishers, you don't have this option to go to another publisher, right? Because
Well,
there is nobody left.
well, there are a lot of publishers coming up every day, basically. At least once a month, I can see a new publisher shining and going into hyper casual. So, there are more and more publishers in the market, but I didn't see that much growth in terms of developers. So, yeah, we have a lot of publishers, but not as many cool developers as I would want to see personally.
I can't agree with you, man. I see that this market is growing critically, and I see even competition between developers, not only between publishers, and more people know about hyper casual genre, know about mobile game development itself, because mobile game development itself is growing very fast, and I see that if you speak about developers, there are more and more developers coming, yeah, as well.
Well, possibly, once again, it's my developer perspective, but the quality does rise among the developers, but the quantity, not so much. But just could be my perspective. You as publisher definitely know a bit more about developers, so we have a lot of connections among them.
The market is too mature. The quality doesn't become lower with becoming more and more new developers, because the market is mature and there are some rules of this market. If we speak about technology, if we speak about aesthetics, if we speak about the deepness of mechanics and this feeling our users get from our games, I can't agree. I see that there are new developers in the market and they do good. Moreover, I see that even juniors from universities, just people who graduate, they have interest in the industry. I have a lot of emails. I have a lot of letters in LinkedIn from students who is also interested in game development and in hyper casual genre, and they ask me so good questions, and just because I hear these questions, I understand that everything will be good, and more and more people will play this genre and will create this genre. So we do a good job here anyway. Let's continue doing it, guys.
So Sergey, is it about lower entry barriers that we have right now than before, or rather brighter minds coming into the business scene that money is in hyper casual as well?
The whole, the threshold is really low. Yeah. If you want to make a hyper casual game which can be played well, okay, we don't speak about aesthetics, but if we speak about well played and well understandable mechanics, it's not something critically difficult in comparison with with building games in other genres, even puzzle games and so on. Lots of already existed, a lot of assets, a lot of frameworks you can try. A lot of even we see that some people just bring APK from the store and they try to go deep in this code. It is not their code, but they try to do it. And anyway, they do something. Don't do this. Don't do this way. Don't steal APK, but because it will never help you grow. But anyway, you see there are a lot of methods how to commit and how to bring new titles to the market. So yeah, the threshold is low. That's why. But of course, bright minds drive this industry as well. I can agree with you, Alexander.
And because of this, like that we have right now thousands of developers because of low entry and dozens of publishers because money is here. Do you think we have too many of publishers, maybe too many of developers? The market is a bit oversaturated with sometimes even maybe mediocre projects because there are just too many of everyone in here.
It's
I
not
don't
bad.
think I can be the last one. Yeah, guys, it's interesting to hear you, Anton and Carol. What do you think as a developer? And I will share some thoughts as a publisher.
No, I just think
Uh,
that not bad. Both for okay, more developers, good, more ideas, more publishers, great, more money in the industry. So on both sides, it's all good. The more of us are here, uh, the better, I guess. As easy as that.
yeah, I think more it's easy for new developers, and especially those that are starting just with game development, to start with hyper casuals because it's still a place where innovative ideas are really important. And somebody that joins this industry and usually has like a fresh perspective. And when the generation shift happens, then you get a new wave of crazy ideas. And I think from a publisher perspective, but also from a developer's perspective, as an employer, it's good to focus on those guys. Maybe they don't have like a lot of experience, but it's always good to mix a lot of different perspectives, because this ensures you that you will always get some fresh and new ideas. And I think this is really important, especially in hyper casuals when ideas are such important. And I think that's one of the reasons that the inflow of new developers will never stop, because younger and younger developers will have different perspectives, and therefore they will have different ideas, and they will bring something new to the industry, so there will be a place for them to shine too. So yeah, that would be my 2 cents.
And Sergey, before you start answering, like talking about paper prototype system as well, I think it matters for the newcomers to this business and so on to have some cash flow. Don't you see this, let's say, graph where at first publishers trying to gain the share of the market, they start paying to everyone around in case by chance some studio publishes the game, and maybe at some point with too many studios appearing in the market, being new to hyper casual market, which is quite different from others, don't you think that the publishers will kind of close the doors for the studios and it will not be such a desirable destination to work in the hyper casual?
I see that we will see within next year because, as I told you, yeah, I see competition not between publishers but between studios as well, and that's partially about what you asked me. Competition, I mean, to get the best conditions, to get the best terms, to get some financial risks covered. But once again, there are a lot of new publishers who also, when they build their business model, they understand that it's okay for them to spend some at least $1 or $2 or even $3 million for prototypes paid, even if they will not publish anything. For them, it's going to be expertise, it's going to be new name, they will build this name, and in this term anyway, developers will find good good terms. It's not trouble to find good terms on the market right now. But I want to go deeper. If you speak about market, deeper about market, it's not about publishers or developers, it's about our players. And I see that our players audience is endless, it's very, very deep. And just imagine, there is a new generation, grows with understanding that mobile games genre, it is the only one widespread mobile games genre is hyper casual games. Well, it's well understandable, relaxing with some healing effect, And I like this idea. I like thinking about it. I like thinking about the market is growing, and I mean more and more users coming, because when we target users, we don't target in narrow way. We target almost everyone. And as we told 2 days ago, the first day of the conference, people who play hyper casual games, they don't even understand sometimes they play games. For them, it's about relaxing, it's about healing effect. And in that way, I'm not worried, and I don't want studios to be worried about hard and difficult times when no one will pay you pay to proto or will provide with good terms. Anyway, we will see new faces, we will see new players, both publishers, both studios, and I believe since the market, the players, audience is growing, everything will be fine. So just do your job in a good way, and like you should love games, and it's not going to be a trouble for you.
Yeah. Thank you, Sergey. I think it was a great conclusion of what we discussed today. Actually, we have some questions from the spectators. I'll start with first one. What have been red flags in the contracts that you receive from the publishers? What's, let's say, terms or conditions that you can have, like in the contract, are not competitive anymore and should be excluded by any publisher from the contract?
I would say right of first refusal. That was a big red flag for us. On one, I won't name any publisher, but like on one of the contracts that we analyzed, and basically, I mean, sometimes you can have right of first refusal, but it all depends on the details. This particular one was built in a way that basically, if you do a hit game, the publisher, has the right to publish any other game that you do. So that's like totally unacceptable. They buy you without buying you. So that was basically unacceptable. Another red flag was a buyout clause, that the publisher was able to buy for a fixed amount any game that we worked on. That was also totally unacceptable. I guess you don't see those clauses nowadays, but I would still, if you see anything like it, think twice, consult a lawyer, or don't sign anything. So that was the two biggest. And any be wary of any exclusivity. I mean, sometimes publishers ask for exclusivity. For instance, when we are working with Voodoo, they have some exclusivity for a prototype. If we submit a prototype, they have like a 3 months exclusivity on that prototype until they decide whether they publish it or not, and that's fine, and it's totally understandable. It would be difficult, if you would be testing a prototype with them and then taking terms from another publisher. That would be kind of unfair. But also look into that and be cautious.
Anton, have you had such experience?
Well, yeah, pretty much in the past, more than now. Currently, pretty much every agreement that I receive are okay-ish. So it's more of a, on what terms are you ready to work yourself? Um, just to start, you have to develop great games, and once you develop great games, you can push your uh, partner, doesn't matter, publisher, developer, to some terms. Once you can show him that you're capable of doing something, and these clauses that you don't like personally, it could be different clauses that any, and ask them to be removed from the agreement. But this will be only acceptable once you are able to develop great games and your partner will be sure that you can deliver, basically. So once again, all agreements are very much flexible, and just don't sign whatever you don't feel like you would want to sign, or something like that. So once you feel like this agreement just fits your processes, pipelines, and you don't fear of for something happening, all good. So just don't sign what you don't want to sign.
Thank you. Next question. What is an ideal profit share that is split between the publishers and developers? Maybe we can rephrase it to what is the revenue share based on, Sergey?
Here we go again. Guys, you should always remember that even 80% of revenue share from zero, it is still zero. First of all, you have to treat what kind of feedback you receive, what kind of product expertise your publisher has, and that's the most important thing. And think about final profit you get, not these percentages, because if your hit game doesn't bring you at least $1 million per year, you have to think about it and to think over it. But if you speak about the market laws, more and more often you can see split revenue share 50-50. But once again, you should also understand that additional 10% sometimes can turn to you anyway to zero. And the only thing you have to find ideal processes and ideal product feedback, ideal marketing feedback, and transparency. So don't think a lot about revenue share, I think.
Yeah,
Maybe it's not popular. Maybe it's not popular feedback from me, but anyway, it is what I really think about, and it is my position. What do you think, Alexander? What is being a publisher? What is the ideal? You understand the market. You talk a lot. You talk a lot to developers. Anyway, you hear from developers, "Oh man, we know where to get 60% of revenue share." You understand what I'm talking about. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree with you that the developer should ask as well the publisher how they're going to approach the games, who will be working on the games with them, like what is the team of the publisher, not only of the studio. And we had some cases with some of our studios, even testing with us some games where they would go to some, let's say, Asian publisher because he would pay them right away, I don't know, 20K, and then they will be locked with this game for 6 months or even 1 year, not getting paid, because with this money they kind of lock your game, lock your studio, and they drain everything they could from this game and from you until it gets profitable or until they think that it's finished. So I would be like super cautious about it. I wouldn't aim that much for the best possible revenue share, because like a normal publisher, in the meantime, he will see how you work, and to retain you, he will offer you better conditions anyway. Because if you're a valuable asset, and the publisher as well as studios, we kind of invest in each other. And of course, like maybe at first when you come to the publisher as a newcomer, you haven't had such a great experience. You have one condition, one terms, but then when you are more capable, when publisher invested in you as well, everything can change. Again, it depends on the developers. Maybe right now in the current market, it's even more important for some developers to have a better payment per prototype deal, just to cover at least the burn rates. And I think right now most publishers provide this, and from there you can go next with the next deal, let's say.
Well, just a couple of words from me. Revenue share is just a part of the deal. Just see through all of the deal. Just check out how they give feedbacks and etc. In case you're going for some, payment for prototypes, that too matters. But you can always start with, I don't know, 50-50, just to see if your publisher agrees on it.
Yeah, I think I will agree with Sergey here. He has a very good point. I mean, the rev share shouldn't be your main concern. I think your main concern should be picking a publisher that's able, to deliver hit games. because even I mean you can be on a, I don't know, on a lousy rev share and still make more money if you get a, you know, higher rev share with a poor publisher. So I mean that's not the whole picture. You should, you know, I mean, then if you decide for that particular publisher, you should negotiate the hell out of it and get the best deal possible. But I mean, that shouldn't be that's not the only factor to consider.
Yep, thank you. Next question: should we trust the publishers who themselves approaches as like developers? Let's say if they have their own development departments.
What's the question?
I mean, like,
should the developers,
What do you think, guys?
trust
What
the
do you think
publisher?
when publisher has in-house, for example?
Yeah.
oh, is there like a risk they will steal your idea? I mean, again, if it's a reputable publisher, I wouldn't be concerned about that. They are more concerned about their reputation. It's more valuable than, you know, stealing your idea. I mean, if it's unrecognized somebody, I would be more, you know, concerned. But if you're working, you know, with one of the top players, I think that wouldn't work with them, you know, stealing your idea. I think that would backfire quickly. So, I mean, that's how I see it.
Yeah, that's true. Also, why would they want to steal your idea if you can deliver?
Yeah, I mean, you should be more capable, you know, of doing good stuff with your own idea than somebody else. So
Yeah, yeah.
they will make money either way. So.
But sometimes it helps. By the way, we have very big in-house for mid-core titles. We have very huge mid-core titles, World War Heroes, Infinity Ops, but it doesn't mean that we will steal an idea. And vice versa, it allows, you know, we have a lot of partners who is interested in mid-core genre, and we have expertise to share, and they see that it's not something so easy, and they stop dreaming about mid-core when they hear our feedback. But yeah, you should also know what genre is dedicated for in-house development. Yeah. If it's hyper-casual games, and as Carol said, if it's a new player, then you have to be more attentive. Yeah, maybe.
I think it actually could be a good thing, because especially when you're a single developer, you know, and when you land a hit, and when you're faced, you know, and now you have to like do like 5 A/B tests within a week, that could be like a bit overwhelming for a single developer. And for instance, like the guys that we work with, they have like an in-house development team that will help you do that. So that actually could be helpful, you know, if when a publisher has an in-house development team.
Yeah, that's one good point. And the second one good point is that in case your publisher has in-house development, probably he has some people responsible for the expertise, producers, and etc. And usually they basically provide you with better feedbacks and etc. than just publishers that didn't ever do any development. So all good.
Yeah, I can only add that at Homa Games we have as well several like in-house studios in Lviv, Toulouse, Lisbon, etc. And I could reassure the developers that actually they are not like sitting with us in the next office. They are as well having their like own expertise, sometimes their own like ideation process and so on. So they are quite still dispatched from the main HQ. And at the same time, if the main office has this ideation process ideas, they are equal to the rest of the external studios to compete for them. It's again about these studios as well, even internal ones, being specialized in a selective number of genres. So there is no real risk, I would say, at least on our part. Yeah, and we need to finish in 1 minute. Maybe, yeah, everyone can have like some kind of final words. Like Sergey could say why developers should go to publishers, and Carol and Anton can say like go to publishers. Carol, you want to start?
Yeah, so I think like it's mutually beneficial. So you as a developer can focus on what you're best at, that is making games, and you can take what the publisher's good at, and that's marketing expertise, and then you can be focused on what you're best at, and this way it's you build something bigger that's the bigger than the sum of its parts. That's the way I see it, and especially if you're like a smaller developer, that wouldn't probably be feasible to build your own marketing team. And that's also expensive. I mean, that's scaling a game costs a lot, and that's like a big financial risk. So you offload that to somebody else. So that's like I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Thank you very much, Anton.
Yeah, do great games, and publishers will come to you on their own. That's it.
Thank you, and Sergey.
Yeah, just you should like what you do. Play a lot, and you will make cool games and deliver a lot of fun to your audience. That's why we are here. Thank you very much, guys. It was a pleasure to talk to you
Thank you.
today.
Thank you very much. Yeah, bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye, guys. Bye.